Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome. Today we're going to be starting a new series discussing the case of Chris Watts. We've wanted to cover this story since the dawn of our channel. However, the sheer amount of information that exists about this crime online was incredibly daunting. Back when I was the only person working on these videos, I didn't think I could cover a case as complex as this one, and I decided I needed to gain a bit more experience before I tackled it. Add to the fact that there is a vocal portion of people who continue to comment on this case as if the victim deserved to be brutalized. We didn't know if we were skilled enough to cover the case respectfully. If you were to simply Google Chris Watts right now, you would find forums dedicated to besmirching the memory of one of the victims, declaring that she was a narcissist, that she had a personality disorder, and that she practically forced the situation. Most of their evidence against her consists of the fact she was working for a multi-level marketing company and used her social media to sell those products. Mind you, some of the people stating these things work on social media and sell merchandise with their own sayings and faces on them, which is ironic. It should go without saying, but unfortunately doesn't, that no matter what you think about a person who was murdered, whether you would like to hang out with them or not, that doesn't mean they somehow deserved to be killed. To be clear, you don't have to like a victim or think they're a good person, but if you go on to diagnose them with a personality disorder and then try to put the onus of responsibility for their tragic demise onto them, that's a bridge too far. I know that stating that at the start of this video will annoy some people, because the majority of you would not be so crass as to state that, but there is a very vocal group of people who will no doubt find this video, and unfortunately, I felt it necessary to say. After working on the Ezra McCandless series, as well as taking on a considerable amount of help in the form of researchers and fact-checkers, we feel like we can cover this case in a way that is respectful to Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico. Just like the Ezra case, this series was initially thought up to be one extremely long video. However, we will be uploading it in parts. For ease of understanding, we will be giving this series its own playlist, and we should be uploading a new video every Monday and Friday until January. With all of that said, let us begin. Who Shanann Watts was depends greatly on who you ask. To those who were close to her, she was an incredibly driven and charismatic woman who worked exceptionally hard throughout her life. She was the type of person who made plans and stuck to them until they were completed, making sure she crossed off every milestone along the way. Friends would state that she was incredibly motivating to be around because she was always ready to take on a challenge. According to them, Shanann never met a hardship she couldn't overcome, and she would overcome a lot. When Shanann was 18 years old, she would get married for the first time. Her ex-husband was 5 years her senior, and initially, their relationship was great. They both would state their partnership had started out near perfect, but as time would go on, things would change. According to an interview done between her ex-husband and the Colorado Bureau of Investigations, the relationship didn't end due to infidelity or abuse. Rather, the two simply grew away from each other over time, which makes sense, given that their marriage started before Shanann's frontal lobe had fully developed. The following was taken directly from the CBI's report following the telephonic interview with her ex-husband that was done when Shanann was considered missing. When their marriage was not going so well, Shanann poured herself into work, worked a lot, and stopped coming home at night. Her ex-husband was unable to get the details from her. Shanann would stay gone, but he was never concerned that something had happened to her. The ex-husband knew that Shanann first worked with cell phones when he met her. She then went to work in Charlotte, North Carolina, for a Middle Eastern guy that owned a tire and wheel business called Dirty South. She was the store manager. The ex-husband said that people liked Shanann. She was a compelling personality. Shanann was in high school when her ex-husband first met her. She got along well with people. I asked about Shanann's skills and conflict resolution. The ex-husband said that he was very interested in marriage counseling and they went to a couple sessions, but it was virtually impossible to engage Shanann in conversation. Once she was done, she cut herself off from him. At home, they would be in different rooms, and she was always too busy for what the ex-husband had going on. She was not confrontational and more withdrew. According to Shanann's own Facebook posts, she took her relationship issues as a sign of moral failure. She was an extremely hard worker and prided herself on mainly being able to find solutions. But when issues had arisen in their marriage, she began to feel like she was a shell of herself.
A lot of you know my part of my story, my health challenges, bad relationships, things that could have knocked somebody down completely hardcore. But the thing is I believe that everything in life happens for a reason, and I also believe people are placed in our life for a reason. And I remember when I went through something major in my life, good relationship, gone bad, and I remember coming out feeling the weakest I've ever felt in my life. Like I was no good. I wasn't good enough. My insecurities got deeper, stronger, and I felt like I was not worthy of anything.
In response to the relationship breaking down, Shanann poured all of herself into her work. Having a struggling marriage made her feel useless, so she put her energy towards other goals, ones that she felt she had a fighting chance at getting. The 23-year-old decided she was going to buy a proper home. When she told friends and family about her goal, they cautioned her against it. She was in her early 20s, with a struggling marriage and a job that didn't necessarily pay well, and they tried to encourage her to aim lower. They saw how much she was struggling in her relationship, and they wanted her to set her sights low, not because they didn't believe in her, but because they thought it would be years until she would have the capital together to get a home. But Shenan was determined, working as hard as she possibly could and setting aside the vast majority of her money, and by the age of 25, she had accomplished her goal.
And from that point on, I fought like hell. I worked my tail off. I busted my butt. I was never a big dreamer, so to think, because my insecurities brought me down. But I remember when I was single for a long time, and my goal was to buy a house. I was tired of paying someone else's mortgage because, you know, that's what you do when you rent. And I wanted to buy a house. And I wanted to buy a house that I could resell one day and make a profit off of. And so I worked and worked and worked and worked. I lost a lot of friends because a lot of my friends were still young. We were still young. And I was 25 years old when I built my first house. My family doesn't come from money. We always worked hard for what we had. And I did. I bought my first house at 25 years old. And that was the biggest accomplishment I felt I've ever done because I did it by myself. I did it by working my tail off for it. And I had that to show for it, you know?
Around 2008, Shanann's first marriage would end. Though the relationship had been bad for years, by the time the pair decided to formally divorce, it took a heavy toll on Shanann. She repeatedly would state that she felt like an abject failure, and that she had no value to add to the world, and that she wasn't good enough to be someone's partner. When family and friends would try and set her up with people they thought would be a good match for her, she would outright reject them, telling them that she wasn't looking for a relationship. At the same time, she began to experience multiple alarming health issues.
My health challenges happened. I was diagnosed with some health challenges, and then I met Chris. I met Chris because of those health challenges. My friend sent me a friend suggestion for him. It was actually his cousin's wife, and I deleted it. I was like, I am not interested. I don't want to meet a guy. Bye-bye. So I deleted her friend suggestion for him. I was diagnosed 2 months later, and I went through one of the, I would say, darkest times of my life because things just got scarier, worse. I thought my life was crumbling underneath me, and I didn't know which way to turn. And I got a friend request from Chris. I was in a really, really, really bad place, and I got a friend request from Chris on Facebook, and I was like, oh, what the heck, I'm never gonna meet him.
But that's when she met Chris. It seemed to the vast majority of their friends that Chris and Shanann were the perfect example of opposites attract. Shanann was a people person, constantly in communication with friends and family about everything. When she met people, she kept in contact and could find some point of connection with those around her. Chris, however, was described as more introverted and kept to himself. He wasn't quick to open up to people, but when he did, he could be pretty engaging.
So, over 10 years ago, I started losing a lot of my hair. I started having a lot of body aches, a lot of discomforts in my body, a lot of things that were limiting my everyday living. And over those course of many years, I was misdiagnosed. I was put on medication that was supposed to help me, and it didn't. So with that being said, 7 years ago, 2010, I went from me being a size 6, which was about 135 pounds for me, to going to a size 1/0, which was a good 20 pounds that I lost. And with losing all that weight in a matter of, I would say, 3 to 4 week period, I was also feeling extremely terrible, to the point where I did not want to get out of bed, literally didn't get out of bed for days. I finally drugged myself to the doctor's office and made them do all kinds of tests. I wanted to know what was wrong with me. A part of me was changing. I went from being super energetic, super happy, just an all-around happy person. I loved going out and doing things. I loved getting together with friends. I loved working. Sounds crazy, right? So anyway, fast forward about 2 weeks, which was the first week of May of 2010 when they diagnosed me with lupus. From there, I was lost. I had no idea what in the world lupus was. Of course, we turned to Google, and what's Google tell you? Google tells you you're gonna die. So in theory, I was freaking out. I was overreacting. I had all these things going on with me, and I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea. Hi, Heather. So at that time, I reached out to support groups on Facebook. I reached out to wherever I could, to the Lupus Foundation of North Carolina, who really helped me tremendously with support and information and introducing me to other people that could help me. So fast forward several months. During those several months, I saw multiple rheumatologists, all of them telling me I had lupus, and then finally being diagnosed also with fibromyalgia, which is another autoimmune disease. So I completely lost it. I wasn't feeling good. I felt like I had the flu all the time. I felt miserable. I was put on all these medications, which then made me gain weight. So I went from being 135 pounds to almost 170 pounds within a 6-week period, which was a total shock and a total, sorry, I got a phone call. It took me to another level. At that time, I went to a little bit of a depression. I was really sad, emotional. All my emotions were everywhere, and I didn't know where to turn. And at the same time, my friend, a mutual friend of mine, sent me a friend request about 8 months prior for Chris, my husband, and I deleted it. I had no interest in dating anyone. I wasn't looking for a boyfriend. I was working. I was goal-oriented. I was a dreamer. I have always been a dreamer. I've always wanted everything in life to be perfect. So anyway, fast forward, in a dark place, all of a sudden I get a friend request from Chris. I said, what the heck? I'll never meet him. He's just a Facebook friend. I have a million of them. Nothing's gonna come of it. Well, 2 weeks later, we finally meet on a blind date. From there, I couldn't get rid of him. I tried. He wouldn't go away. He was stuck. I drug him to a colonoscopy. I drug him to rheumatology appointment after rheumatology appointment. I drug him to my spinal tap, which was awful. A student did it, which I'm all for people learning, but not when it comes to a spinal tap. So that was really rough, and ended up falling in love with him. Emotionally, I was all over the place. I felt awful. Canceled dates left and right with Chris because I just couldn't do it all. And then we fell in love.
Chris and Shenan met during one of the most difficult times in her life. Her body, it seemed, was failing her. Her hair was falling out, she had no energy, and though she sought medical expertise, her health would continue to get worse. Like many people with lupus, Shenan was misdiagnosed multiple times over, and a fair few people in her life didn't believe she was actually sick. According to an article by the CDC, quote, lupus symptoms can show up in many different ways and are often mistaken for symptoms of other diseases. This is why it can be hard to diagnose and is often called the great imitator. Lupus symptoms can range from mild to life-threatening, so early diagnosis and treatment by a rheumatologist are important. But it's because the symptoms can materialize in so many different ways that friends and family of the sufferer can be incredibly dismissive and unsympathetic of what the person is going through. According to But You Don't Look Sick, the qualitative analysis of the Lupus UK online forum published in the National Library of Medicine, many lupus sufferers and online communities relay the fact that the people around them will accuse them of pretending to be ill for attention and simply being lazy when they have lupus flare-ups. Shenan, who already felt as if she were not ready to begin dating, was dealing with this when Chris entered her life, and she continually rebuffed his advances. She repeatedly stated that she was not in the right headspace to date, not because she wasn't attracted to him or he wasn't interesting to her, but because she was struggling too much to even consider being someone else's partner. This did little to stop Chris's pursuit of Shenan. He routinely showed up for her in ways that she wasn't expecting, taking her to and from doctor's appointments, sending her loving missives, and repeatedly telling her that even if nothing was to come of the courtship, he would be there for her. As Shanann started to get better, their relationship began in earnest. Shanann's family accepted Chris into their lives immediately, thinking that while he was a bit quiet for her, he ultimately seemed like a stand-up guy. But the same could not be said for Chris's family. Chris's parents, specifically his mother, Cindy, has been very vocal about her distaste for her daughter-in-law. She has talked at length about how she viewed Shenan as an egotist and treated Chris poorly.
When and where did he meet Shanann?
They met, and he liked her, she liked him, but it didn't, I don't think that was love at first sight or anything. They took a little while and I guess got to know each other and, dated. It was always a little strange that she always said a lot of things about Chris in front of me that I didn't like. Like, this isn't the kind of person I would date. He doesn't know how to do this, or he doesn't know how to do that. He looks like a skater boy. Look at his hair. Look how much stuff he puts on his hair. It was just on and on and on, and I just got a bad feeling.
And they got married in 2012. Did they get married in North Carolina?
They did. Mm-hmm.
How was that?
Oh, we didn't attend.
Really?
Mm-mm. We didn't attend because Shanann and I just couldn't get along, and I didn't like the way she treated him.
Her greatest example was the fact that when she first met Shenan, she poked fun at the way Chris styled himself, saying he looked like a skater boy and that he wasn't her usual type. To be clear, even in Cindy's own statements, nothing that Shenan said was outright hostile or demeaning towards Chris. Shanann's family would go on to say that this kind of teasing was typical in their household and was used as a way to break the ice, but Cindy took great offense to it. She similarly didn't think that Shenan was good enough for Chris, and went so far as to claim that Shenan had lied about her lupus diagnosis and the many medical ailments that came with it. She believed that Shenan was horribly controlling over Chris, that she just liked to give him orders, so she faked the autoimmune disease to make her behavior seem more acceptable. Cindy was not shy about this opinion. She would tell Chris that it would be in his best interest to end his relationship with Shenan. This resulted in many arguments between Chris and his parents, with him telling them that they were being unfair to his girlfriend. Instead of catering to his mother's will, Chris proposed to Shenan after 2 years of dating. Cindy made her feelings towards Shenan known, but the couple still invited his family to the wedding, believing that they wouldn't let anything get in the way of seeing their son get married. That was not the case. Cindy and the rest of the Watts family would choose not to attend the wedding. This was deeply hurtful for Chris, who spent the better part of a month afterward furious at his family. He didn't understand why they couldn't just be happy for him, to respect his own choices and put their bitterness aside. They had missed his marriage out of pride, and that deeply hurt him. Shenan and her family rallied around Chris at this time, telling him that they were happy he was part of their family regardless of any issues. The first year of marriage between Shenan and Chris was said to be blissful, with her becoming pregnant almost immediately. Shenan had been told by multiple of her doctors that she would never be able to have children, as many of the medications she was placed on would make carrying a child to term nearly impossible. So when it was found she was pregnant, she was over the moon. Chris and her did everything in their power to make sure that she and the baby were kept as stress-free and healthy as possible. And Shenan encouraged Chris to reach out to his parents again, though he was still upset about them missing the wedding, and choosing their pride over trusting his decision-making. They wanted their children to know their grandparents. On December 17, 2013, Bella Marie Watts was born. Bella mostly took after Chris, being more shy and introverted than most children her age. She didn't enjoy being the center of attention and greatly preferred to keep to herself. Nearly 2 years after Bella entered the world, Shanann and Chris would welcome their second daughter, Celeste Catherine Watts, into the world. Celeste, who the family called Cece, was the exact opposite of Bella. She was loud and rambunctious, putting on performances for anyone she could. Both the girls got along the way sisters usually do, going between fighting and playing nearly every day. Shenan and Chris often mused about how they loved being parents, and how raising the two girls brought so much purpose and joy into their lives. However, things weren't as wonderful as they portrayed on social media. Shortly before Celeste's birth, the Watts family was forced to declare bankruptcy. Rachel Chang would summarize the family's financial state, writing, "With a combined income of $90,000 in 2014, in addition to credit card debt, student loans, and medical bills, the couple filed for bankruptcy in June of 2015, stating that their $3,000 mortgage and $600 car payments took up most of their $4,900 in monthly expenses. Additionally, their homeowners association sues them for unpaid HOA fees. As they continued to struggle with their finances and stay on their feet, Shenan was introduced to the multi-level marketing company Lavelle. Like the majority of MLMs, they marketed themselves as being an alternative to the normal 9-to-5 and the perfect option for a stay-at-home mom who simply wanted extra income. They encouraged the men and women working for the company to constantly be posting about how perfect their lives were now that they were using the products, and to post as often as possible. Given the family's financial hardship, Shenan quickly bought into their marketing and decided to buy into Lavelle. However, unlike the majority of people who start working for an MLM, Shenan found a great amount of success. She had plenty of friends who were willing to buy products from her and would engage with every single one of her posts. She would post daily, talking about the new Lavelle products she was using and how they improved her livelihood, and was able to cultivate a downline of other Lavelle distributors. With the money Shenan was earning from Lavelle, the family was able to make their way out of financial hardship, with Chris also joining the team, albeit to much less success. He also had found employment at Anadarko Petroleum. Shenan and Chris would post about Lavelle, their line of products, and oftentimes use their marriage as a selling point. In posts talking about how much they loved and supported each other, they would also be sure to showcase the newest range of products, imploring their friends and family to act now in order to not miss the latest sale. From their social media, their relationship seemed perfect. And in May of 2018, Shenan would surprise Chris on a live stream by informing him that she was pregnant again.
We did it again. I like that shirt. Really?
Really.
That's awesome.
In later live streams, she would talk about how excited she was to be pregnant again, and how the Lavelle supplements were helping her through her first trimester, and how she hoped, for Chris's sake, that this baby was a boy. Chris had wanted a son badly, and they already had a name picked out, Nico. Shortly after becoming pregnant, issues began to arise in the marriage, and within the span of 2 months, Shenan, Bella, Celeste, and little baby Nico's lives would be abruptly and violently ended. Unlike what had occurred in her first marriage, when Shenan began noticing issues between herself and Chris, she knew she couldn't simply withdraw. She was in a totally different position than she'd been with her first husband, and she wanted to make things work. And part of that meant mending fences with his family. In June of 2018, pregnant Shenan took Bella and Cece to North Carolina in order to visit both of their extended families. The trip was set to last 5 weeks, with the family unit visiting all of their relatives for an extended period of time, with Chris joining them later on. However, the trip did not go as planned. Shenan had hoped that her making an effort with his family would help patch things up, but they continued to grow apart. She repeatedly messaged her husband, asking him about his day, how work was going, and what he was up to, but he ignored her texts and calls, telling her repeatedly that he was busy. When she did get him on the phone, he either seemed to be in a hurry to get off the call, or worse, bored of talking with her at all. She would describe her phone calls with him as pulling teeth, trying to get him to engage with her when he clearly didn't want to. She went so far as to tell Chris that she felt like he was holding back from her in a text message sent on July 10th, writing, "I wish my husband wanted to talk to me." Chris tried to placate his wife, telling her that everything between them was fine and that he was just stressed from work. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Nearly 2 weeks later, Shanann tried to get Chris to open up to her once more, writing, "I realized this trip what's missing in our relationship. It's only one-way emotions and feelings. I can't come back like this. I need you to meet me halfway. You don't consider others at all, nor think about feelings. I try to give you space, but while you are working and living the bachelor life, I'm carrying our third and fighting with 2 kids daily and trying to work and make money. It's not hard texting love you and miss you. If you don't mean it, then I get it, but we need to talk. I kept looking at my phone all night and no response from you. Like seriously, we didn't just start dating yesterday. We've been together 8 years and have 2.5 kids together." Shanann was asking Chris to put some effort in, but the more she asked for him to talk to her, the more he ignored her. After weeks apart, on July 31st, he flew out to North Carolina to reunite with his family, but things did not go well. On August 3rd, Chris, Shanann, and the girls went to visit his side of the family. Cindy still took issue with Shanann and believed her to be an overdramatic liar. She took particular umbrage with Shanann's medical history, believing that the mother of her grandchildren had feigned having lupus to get out of work and boss other people around who were closest to her. In Cindy's statements, it was clear that she thought Shanann faked medical ailments for attention, and when that didn't work, she did the same thing for her daughter. Celeste had an allergy to tree nuts, one that made cooking and shopping especially hard for Shanann. In her Facebook Live videos, Shanann would begrudge this fact and discuss how hard it was to find food for her youngest, but she would clarify that she didn't mind too much, as she once had been told she would never have children, much less healthy children. Cindy was well aware of this allergy, and she would mock it, claiming once more that Shanann was lying for attention. She all but accused the mother of suffering with Munchausen by proxy, and when reunited with her grandkids, decided to test that theory. According to text messages that Shanann would send to Chris, Cindy had given Celeste a bowl of ice cream with tree nuts in it, as well as deliberately put a bowl of nuts out on the counter in front of Cece when Shanann was in the other room. Shanann came back into the room before anything was ingested, but was livid at the situation. At best, Cindy had ignored everything that Shanann had stated about Cece's issues, which could have resulted in her going into anaphylactic shock, but at worst, she had purposely ignored Shanann and put Cece's life at risk. In Shanann's mind, and the minds of the majority of people who knew Shanann, it had been the latter. She was extremely vigilant when it came to Cece's health, and would tell anyone who came into contact with the toddler about her allergies. She was constantly telling people about the lengths she had to go to get food. And while many people online believe that Cindy and Shanann were looking for attention, there's no proof that she was lying about this, but derisive blogs will state otherwise. Shanann was livid. In her mind, Cindy could not have simply forgotten Cece's allergy. She had told her repeatedly about it before the trip, and for her to ignore something so life-threatening was a bridge too far. She confronted Chris's parents, but Cindy stated it had simply been an accident. Both Chris and his father said nothing as the fight continued to escalate, and Shanann made the final decision to remove the girls from the home, no longer trusting the grandparents with her children's safety. Because of the argument, Chris's parents decided to block Shanann on Facebook and skip Celeste's birthday party. Once more, this caused an argument between Shanann and Chris, an argument we only know about because Shanann sent a portion of it to her friend via text. The following is that text. "Truth came out last night. I didn't create no dagger between you and your dad. That was done by your mom and your dad, and I won't change a thing. My daughter's life is way more important, and you better believe I wanted to say a whole lot more than I did, but I was being the bigger person and protecting Bella. I didn't tell your dad not to come to the party. I didn't tell him not to text or call your daughter or her birthday. I didn't tell him to start acting like he only has 2 grandkids instead of 4. I didn't block your family on Facebook, he did. Myself and your kids have nothing to say to them. They do. They owe your kids their life. Your parents' home isn't a safe zone. Your mom isn't safe. You can let them tell you what you want. But I didn't tell anyone to stop loving your kids or stop acting like it. He did that, not me. You can believe I created this dagger, but I didn't do that. I stood up for our children. I don't ever want to hear I'm sorry I killed your kid because I was stupid. That would kill me. These kids are my world, and I protect them from the evil of the world. I shouldn't have to protect them from evil family. Our kids deserve the same love and attention the other kids get, nothing less. I'm not accepting I'm sorry from your mom, because she doesn't mean it, and she knew what she was doing. I made it very clear not to eat it around Celeste, because she doesn't understand way before what happened. She's evil and willing to risk your daughter's life just to get under my skin. You and your dad are no different if you are okay with her behavior. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not crazy. I just love my kids way too much. From the day I left, you never said I missed you before I said it. Something changed when I left. You may be happier alone, and that's fine. You can be alone. The pregnancy, you have failed to acknowledge it or acknowledge how I'm feeling. The first trimester is the scariest and the most dangerous, yet we can lose this baby at any point till delivery. I'm not going to be treated this way for having the balls to protect our family and kids. I should get a gold ducking medal for handling it the way I did, because I had a lot of choice words I wanted to say to her and your dad for his stupidity. No one stands up to your mom and your dad for that. He's just as guilty by not doing anything. I have nothing to do with him sharing memories with his grandkids. What does that have to do with me? They are fucking with our kids' feelings, and I'm not okay with that. I am their mother, and I will protect them. I have enough to worry about. With the world out there, I'm not going to worry about family. I will just remove it. Shanann's friend asked what Chris said in response to her long, accusatory message, to which she replied, nothing besides that he loves his kids. Once more, he stonewalled Shanann, and she was beginning to think that their marriage was broken beyond repair. Shanann had asked him what was wrong repeatedly, and told him it felt like he just kept emotionally pulling further and further away from her. She asked him to come back to her, to tell her what was wrong, and he repeatedly claimed he was just stressed because of work, and that he was sorry if he had pushed her away. Little did she know that as he was pushing her away, he was pulling someone else closer. While Shanann was struggling to try and connect with her husband, he'd been busy connecting with his coworker, Nicole Kessinger. According to Nicole, she knew of Chris vaguely. She had been hired as a contract worker at Anadarko Petroleum, where Chris worked as an oil field operator, and they would pass each other from time to time. Chris's job kept him traveling to different fields, so the times they saw each other were far and few between. But Nicole would state that when she did see him, she believed he was cute. She would also allege that she believed he was single, because working on an oil field is dirty work. It was normal for employees to take off their wedding bands during the day. And when Nicole was formally introduced to Chris in May of 2018, she would claim that he wasn't wearing his wedding band. They quickly bonded over fitness and healthy eating, and throughout their conversations, Chris made no mention of being married. Nicole would say as much in a police interview with the Colorado Bureau of Investigations, but that was a lie. Nearly a year before Chris would become aware of Nicole, on September 1st, 2017, she Googled Shanann's name and visited Shanann's Facebook page for an unknown amount of time. As Shanann used her page to sell MLM products, she showcased Chris, Bella, and Celeste often, meaning that Nicole was aware of Shanann, so she knew when they began their affair that he was married. Nicole and Chris would later claim that they had met June 14th, 2018. Notably, that same day, Shanann would record Bella singing this song.
My daddy is a hero. He helps me grow up strong. He helped me snuggle too. He reads me books. He ties my shoes. If you're a hero, blue and blue, my daddy is love you.
Oh,
When a flirty relationship began to form between the coworkers, Chris told the younger woman that he was in the middle of separating with his newly pregnant wife. He told her that Shanann didn't understand him anymore, and their relationship was more of a contractual agreement rather than a real marriage with feelings. Shanann and Chris began fighting more, with various neighbors hearing the couple going at it at all hours of the day. But Shanann told friends and family they were just going through a rough patch, which was normal after about a decade together. She would routinely shower Chris with praise and adoration publicly, writing long statements about what a wonderful husband and father he was. While she was doing that, Chris began to pursue Nicole the same way he had pursued his pregnant wife years prior, making up various excuses to stop by her office in the middle of a workday. By the time Shanann took the girls to North Carolina to see family and hopefully show her commitment to making their marriage work, Chris had begun a full-fledged affair. Nicole and Chris would both claim that while Shanann and the girls were away, Chris had his younger mistress over to the family home. Nicole would state that he invited her over so she could, quote, set up his diet and weight loss exercise goals, and that she came over, ate lunch, and then immediately left, which, frankly, sounds completely false. She would go on to state that she didn't feel altogether comfortable in the home, feeling as if it were already lived in. Seeing the family photos on the wall and witnessing the years of life that Chris had shared with Shanann in one place seemed to make her feel like what she was doing was wrong, and she opted to leave quickly. According to police documents, quote, she respected the home as their space. She went to the house very early in the relationship. Again, how true that is remains to be seen, as Chris told an entirely different version of events from that day. He claimed that on the morning of July 4th, he woke up in Nicole's bed to several missed calls from Shanann. He told his mistress that he needed to get home. That way he could call her back, at which point Nicole became upset with him. She claimed that he was always putting Shanann, his newly pregnant wife, and their children before her, and that she was always going to be the other person to him, which is what happens when you're the other person in a relationship. She's mad at him for choices they are both making, but alright. Chris tried to placate Nicole, telling her that he was going to divorce Shanann soon, so they could properly be together. But Nicole was adamant that if he didn't start making her feel like she was a priority, she would just leave. It would appear that this argument with Nicole had a profound effect on Chris, and he would start actively ignoring Shanann more than he already was. If you recall, this was the same time that Shanann was beginning to feel like Chris was being distant from her. She was texting him and calling him while on vacation, and repeatedly asked him why he was no longer willing to talk to her. Any time that Chris was with his mistress, which was nearly all the time, he would go out of his way to ignore texts or calls from Shanann as a sort of display of commitment. Where he used to remove himself from the situation to talk on the phone with his wife, he was now declining her calls and saying he was too busy. This seemed to be enough for Nicole, and the two continued to see each other often. After this argument, Nicole began sending Chris semi-nude photographs of herself, which he kept in an app hidden on his phone. The two would talk about what their lives would be like after he divorced Shanann. Chris would say he wanted to get his own apartment, one big enough for his daughters to run around comfortably in, and eventually they would be married, with her going so far as to search for wedding dresses for 2 hours while he was in North Carolina with his family. However, once again, Nicole would later tell the police something different. She claimed that their relationship was mostly a surface-level one, and that they hadn't discussed any future plans. By the time the Watts family returned to the shared home, things were noticeably different. Shanann would tell Chris that she felt like he was no longer in love with her, and on August 7th, he would claim that he no longer wanted to have another child, which is a shocking thing to say to her, as she was already pregnant. Shanann was somewhat shocked at his admission. She told friends that while she knew they had problems and that he had pulled away from her, she never thought he would say he didn't want one of their children. In texts she sent to various friends looking for advice on the situation, she claimed that before the trip, he had been incredibly intimate and affectionate with her. But now, she felt like he had fallen out of love with her in the matter of a month. Shanann canceled the gender reveal they had planned for the baby and asked Chris to consider going to couples counseling with her. This wasn't like her first marriage. They had set down roots, they had kids, and she wanted to make things work above all else. But Chris passively denied her request, giving her various excuses as to why he wouldn't go to therapy, and claiming that he would just try to work on his feelings. On August 9th, Shanann had to leave for a business trip to Arizona. Though things in their relationship were still dire, she told friends and family that Chris and her had had a breakthrough the night before she left. They had seemingly been able to reach an understanding, with Chris agreeing to read a relationship book she had bought off of Amazon, and her admitting that her behavior towards him hasn't always been the best. Before she left for the trip, she drafted a handwritten letter for him to read while she was away. She had tried talking, yelling, and texting, but she thought maybe she could win him back through a new medium of communication. The letter read, "My dearest Chris, I don't know where to begin. I am so lost for words. I can't even explain how hard this pain hurts. The last 5 weeks have been the hardest. I missed everything about you. I missed your morning breath, your touch, your lips, kisses. I miss holding you. I miss smelling you in the sheets. I miss talking to you in person. I missed watching you laugh and play with the kids that I love so much about you. I missed seeing you naked and on top of me, making love to me. OMG, I missed having you around when I felt alone and upset. I just flat out missed the hell out of you. We haven't been away from each other for that long since 2012. I really don't know how we fell out of compatibility, or if that is someone else's words. The only thing that changed this month was everything going down with your family. I can't change what happened, but I can work things out with you, with them. But there has to be mutual respect for everyone. I definitely deserve an apology because of Celeste. I can suck up to her, going against everything I said to our kids. But our daughter's life can't be replaced. You said you would call them and handle it. From there, the strain grew stronger and stronger. The only time I have seen you this closed off was after our wedding. You were so hurt and angry, you were done with them. When we found out we were pregnant, I wanted to help you fix the hurt and pain. I knew it hurt you. We worked together to help you through it. I don't want to lose you ever. I will suck it up and be civil with your family because I love you. But there has to be the same respect on the other end. That is what's right. I can't lose you. I won't lose you without a fight. I will fight for our love. Fight for us. This is the hardest thing I have ever gone through, but you are worth it. Just talk to me. Tell me what you need. I love you, baby, with all my heart. Happy anniversary. Love always, Shanann. In a message she sent to a friend, she took ownership of her own negative attributes in the relationship, stating that, quote, I sometimes can be bitchy, and he gets that side of me. I know I tend to make him feel like he isn't able to do things because I have control issues. She stated she wanted to work on herself on the trip away, and hoped that when she came back, they could begin repairing what had been broken. All she needed was him to work alongside her, to determine that theirs was a relationship worth saving. But, despite what Chris would tell Shanann directly, he had already made up his mind. While Shanann was away, Chris hired a babysitter so he could go out on dates with Nicole. He opted not to read the book Shanann purchased for him, and instead focused his energy on his burgeoning relationship with his mistress. He continued to ignore Shanann's calls and messages, and though she hoped he was following through on his promise to her, in the past 5 weeks had been just a small bump in the road. But Chris had begun to think about his future. Even if he was to divorce Shanann, she would never fully be out of his life. She would always be in the background, checking in on him and the kids. She would have asked to come to his apartment, checked to make sure it was safe for the kids to be in, made sure he brought the right food for them, and inserted herself into his life as if they were still married. For the next 2 decades of his life, at the very least, he would see her at least once a week, if not more. Moreover, he knew that the moment he would publicly begin to date Nicole, Shanann would immediately assume that he had cheated on her. They would never be able to properly convince the wife and mother that Nicole hadn't played a part in the dissolution of their marriage, especially when Chris's go-to excuse for spending time away from her was that he was working. Chris was at a loss for what to do. He needed to leave Shanann to keep his relationship with Nicole going, but he couldn't just leave her without any sort of explanation. He mulled over how to proceed while she was away. But then, on August 13th, 2018, his life would change in an irreversible way. On August 13th at nearly 2 a.m., Shanann was dropped off at the family home by her friend Nicole Atkinson. She was exhausted, having spent the past couple of days surrounded by other MLM affiliates, but was hoping that the time away had brought Chris closer to clarity about their situations. She hoped that he had spent the time reading the book that she'd bought, looking at the relationship therapists in the area, and that he would be willing to finally tell her what was on his mind. Shanann had talked to Atkinson every day on her trip, and had told her about the struggles she was having at home, and she worried about her pregnant friend. Shanann was so stressed that she had not been eating, resulting in migraines, and at one point, she nearly collapsed. Atkinson was so worried about her friend that she offered to give Shanann a ride to her doctor's appointment the very next day. Shanann thanked her, and told her that she would let her know when she woke up. But she never did. When Nicole woke up the next day, expecting to see a text from Shanann telling her about her conversation with Chris, and if she would need a ride to her doctor's appointment, she was shocked to find that her friend hadn't messaged her at all. Shanann was a prolific texter, and nearly every morning, Nicole would wake up to a message from her best friend, but there was nothing. This worried her greatly. She hoped that her pregnant friend had simply overslept, but given her medical issues from the weekend, she feared for the worst. She texted Shanann, asking her about the night and if she would need a ride, but heard nothing back. Hours went by. Growing more concerned, she called her pregnant friend, imploring she reach back out when she could. More time passed without a word, with Nicole texting her repeatedly with the hope that she had just slept in, or her phone had run out of battery. Atkinson reached out to Chris, asking him if he had heard from Shanann that morning. Chris said that Shanann was fine, and had simply taken the girls out on a play date with another friend, although he didn't know the name or contact information of said friend. Nicole was immediately suspicious of this, as Shanann hadn't told her of any play date the night prior, when they were discussing taking Shanann to the doctors. When Nicole brought up the fact that she had plans with Shanann, Chris said that his wife must have forgotten, and that she would simply take herself to the appointment. In this conversation, Chris also mentioned that when he had spoken to Shanann that morning, he had told her that he wanted to separate. This did little to calm Nicole. If Chris had stated that he no longer wanted to be in their marriage, Shanann would have immediately called her. She would have been beside herself, and there was no way that she would have been able to go about her day as usual. Nicole told Chris that she would be going to the home to check on Shanann. He tried to convince her not to, saying that she was at some friend's house. But after Nicole called Shanann's doctor and found that she had missed her appointment, she went to the home with her son to make sure everything was okay. Almost immediately, Nicole realized something was wrong. Shannann's car was still in the garage, with Bella and Celeste's car seats still locked inside, meaning the girls and Shanann had to be inside the home. Chris, it seemed, had lied to her. Nicole tried to enter the home, using the code that Shanann gave her for emergencies, but found that it was locked tight with a deadbolt. The home security system alerted Chris to Nicole's movements, and he called the fearful friend, telling her that everything was fine. Shanann was on a play date, and that she needed to get off his property. Nicole notified him that what he was saying could not be true, as Shanann's car was still in the garage, but he continued to tell her that everything was fine. Atkinson told Chris that if he didn't come home, just to make sure his wife wasn't experiencing a medical emergency, she was going to call the police to do a welfare check. At the mention of the police becoming involved, Chris shot into action, telling her that he was on his way and would be there soon, but he wasn't. Nicole waited outside the home for Chris to arrive for nearly 3 hours. She called him after 45 minutes, and he claimed that he was about 5 minutes away. She waited another 45 minutes, then called him again, and he stated he was still a ways out, clearly not taking the situation seriously. Annoyed that Chris wasn't taking his wife's health seriously and worried that her friend was experiencing a medical emergency, Nicole called the police.
County Communications, this is Stacy.
Hi, Stacey. My name's Nicole, and I'm calling because I'm concerned about a friend of mine. I dropped her off at her house at 2 in the morning last night because we were out of town together, and we were on the way back from the airport, and she was having issues, and she's pregnant, and I haven't been able to get a hold of her this morning, and I've gone to her house, and her car's there, and stuff like that, but she won't answer the door, she won't answer phone calls, she won't answer text messages. And I'm just really, really concerned. And she had a doctor's appointment this morning, and she didn't go to it. And I don't know what to do. I've called him and talked to him, and he said that she went on a play date with her other 2 daughters. But, like, if she went on a play date, they're both in car seats. Why would she not take her car?
Perfectly understandable. Do you happen to know her address, Nicole?
I'm asking Shannon outside the house. It's 2825 Saratoga Trail in Frederick. And then I said, like, Chris, can you just come home and check to make sure she's okay? Because the shoes she wears every single day are right inside her door. And he was like, yeah, I'll be there in 30 minutes. Well, that was 45 minutes ago. And I called him and asked him again, can you please come home? And he's like, I'm 45 minutes out.
Thank you. Okay, Nicole, tell me exactly what happened.
So we were out of town for work, and we flew in last night. Our flight got delayed, and I dropped her off at her house at 2 in the morning. She's 15 weeks pregnant, and she wasn't feeling well over the weekend, and she was very, like, distraught and out of the sorts because her and her husband are having issues. So she was concerned because she wasn't, like, eating or drinking and stuff like that. So then this morning I was like, let me know if you need me to take you to your doctor's appointment because you're not feeling well. And I have called and texted. I've come to her house. She's not answering the door. She's not responding to text messages, phone calls. I've had other friends reach out to her. None of us can get her to respond to us. They have 2 little girls that are 3 and 4. I mean, there's no movement in the house whatsoever. And he states that she didn't take them to daycare and was going to go on a play date. But they're both in car seats, and her car is here.
What's her name?
It's in the garage. I'm like, well, huh?
What's her name?
Shanann Watts. It's SHANANN Watts, WATTS.
Do you know her date of birth or how old she might be?
Oh, if you wouldn't have asked me that, I would know it.
That's okay. If you just know her approximate age, that's take that too.
She's in her mid-20s, early 30s.
Okay. Bear with me here one moment. When was the last time that you heard from her?
When I dropped her off at her house, I watched her, made sure she got in the house. That was at 2 a.m. It was actually 1:55. I literally lived like 5-10 minutes from her.
Okay. And her vehicle is it parked in the garage?
Yes. It's a white Lexus.
Okay.
And I probably, because I was concerned, I know I don't want to get a doctor's office in trouble, but I went to the doctor's office because I've been used them as doctors, and I said, I know you can't give me things because of HIPAA, but can you just tell me if she showed up at her appointment this morning? And the lady was like, no, she did not.
Okay. Is that's unusual behavior for her to not show up to her doctor's appointment?
No.
Okay.
No. Pregnancy, like, she was so excited and then got blindsided from her husband that he wanted to separate a week ago.
And her husband's name is Chris?
Yes, his name is Chris Watts.
And he told you that she went on a play date today with
the girls.
Okay.
Yeah, with their 4-year-old. And she told me last night when we were driving home, she's like, the morning's going to suck because I have to take the girls to daycare tomorrow. And I made the statement, well, you could keep them home with you. And she was like, no, that'd be more exhausting. She's like, I have to get up and take them because I have a doctor's appointment at 9.
Bear with me here one moment. I'm just typing this information in the call here.
And I'm not trying to cause problems more between them. I just want to know she's okay.
Okay. And Chris told you that he was on his way.
Yes, I just talked to him. Well, I talked to him earlier. One of our other friends did via text because I was going to the doctor's office, and she said he would be here in about 30 minutes, and that was at 1:08. And then I called him and said, Chris, I'm at your house. I'm not trying to cause drama or anything. I just need to know your wife, okay? I was like, where are you? And he was like, I'm on I-70. I'm about a half hour to 45 minutes out. And I just said, okay, and then I hung up and called you guys because I'm just worried.
Okay, Nicole, what kind of vehicle are you in right now?
I'm in a white Dodge Dart.
Okay. Alrighty, we do have a call in, Nicole. We'll have an officer come out that way as soon as we can. I would just advise you, to not try to make entry into the house or anything like that until the officers can get there. In the meantime, if you do hear from her, just give us a call back and let us know, okay?
91.
Okay.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
The following footage was taken from the channel True Crime Case Histories. I will be skipping around through the footage to try and keep this video under an hour, but I will put a direct link to the full video in the description box down below. Their channel is also a treasure trove of interrogation and deposition footage, and I will be leaving their channel in the description box as well. I highly encourage anyone who likes our videos to check their channel out, as well as subscribe and send them support. With all of that said, let us begin.
How you guys doing? What's that?
Do you remember me?
Yeah.
Hey, man.
How you been?
Hi.
You Nicole?
Yes.
Okay. So what's going on?
So my friend, we were out of town for a business trip this weekend.
Right.
And I dropped her off at 2 o'clock this morning. She's 15 weeks pregnant. She wasn't feeling well. And she had a doctor's appointment this morning at 9. And I told her to let me know if she needed me to take her. She's got 2 little girls. And she was very distraught over the weekend, wasn't eating normally or drinking. And we kept trying to force it on her because she's pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Her husband and her supposedly are separating, but she didn't know this. She thought they were just having issues. He disclosed that to me today.
Okay.
Because I called him and I was like, have you talked or heard from Shanann since she left for work this morning? Because I can't get a hold of her. I've called, I've texted. Her car's in the garage. Her shoes she wears every single day are by the front door.
She only has one vehicle?
No, they only have the one vehicle in his work truck.
Okay. That's what I'm asking.
She
There's
took
not
the girls and went on a play date, but they're 4 and 2. She went on a play date. Why wouldn't she take in a car? They're both in car seats.
Nicole, so far, is the perfect witness. She is nervous but measured, providing the officer with a solid background of information while not dwelling on unimportant information. She brings up the marital discord, not as a way to place suspicion on Chris, but to show that Shenan was having a hard time taking care of herself. She mentions that while she was away, she hadn't been drinking or eating due to stress, and that could have had an adverse effect on her pregnancy. Despite the situation being troubling, she has maintained her composure. Her behavior is notable. As it's notable, she cares deeply for Shanann.
She had a doctor's appointment this morning at 9 and she didn't go to the doctor's appointment.
Okay. No answer on the phone. Husband's on his way.
Supposedly, but he said that 30 minutes ago when I called him again and he said he was 45 minutes out still. And I know the code to the door.
You do?
I do, but there's a thing on it. There's a, no, it'll, even Chris knows you can do it. There's a, they have the thing flipped up here.
Oh. What about the garage door?
I don't
Is
know.
there...
Shanann and Chris rarely flipped the deadbolt on the home, and it being inaccessible from inside was extremely concerning to Nicole. Shanann had given multiple of her friends the code to the home because of her lupus, and had repeatedly stated that should something go wrong with her health, she wanted to make sure they were able to get to her quickly. Having the deadbolt flipped was outside of Shanann's pattern of behavior, and according to those closest to her, she would have never done this herself.
Do you mind calling him and seeing if we can get a passcode to this and get me permission to go in?
Okay.
I'm just gonna check the back, see if I can see anything. Right. I just want to look in all the windows, make sure I don't see anything out of. Do they? I got nothing right now though. How you doing? You seen your neighbors today? No? Okay. Oh, we're just trying to get a hold of her. Felt like she wasn't feeling too good and pregnant, and they were just concerned.
No, I know he works in the oil field, so he's on certain days and off for.
You didn't see her today though, any outside or anything? Okay.
That's not anything.
Right.
Is there a key code, Sandy, to open the garage from the outside? What is it? His mom's gonna get it.
Okay.
This is her parents.
Mike, what's the key code of the garage? Shanny's house. The cops are there.
Well, I can't go in, but if they allow you to go in, I have to have the property owner's permission to enter.
Something's going on.
Okay. Well, he's the property
Well,
owner.
Chris told me Shannon was at her girlfriend's house.
Do we know who that is?
Do we know who?
Or phone number?
He didn't say.
When did he tell you that?
He needs Chris is acting funny. I don't get it. What did he say?
He told me that Shanann didn't take the girls to school this morning because she was going to go on a play date, but her car's here.
Already, the responding officer would be noting that Chris has given two different stories about where his wife is. Up to this point, this officer would likely be thinking that this is a nothing call. He stated earlier that it was more than possible that Shanann had gotten picked up by a friend or by a family member, or that she could have gone on a walk and let her phone run out of battery. Someone not answering a couple of texts and being hard to reach for a few hours is rarely a sign that something is desperately amiss. Shanann being pregnant and having been feeling ill all weekend is notable, but at this point, he would still be thinking that she's probably fine. However, with Chris lying about returning home and now giving two separate versions of events to her friends and family, the officer is now beginning to feel as if the call is a bit more nuanced than a simple welfare check.
What's Chris's phone number?
They have the top lock, the one that they have on there so CC can't escape. Chris's phone number is 910-309-1702.
Okay. That was Chris, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey Chris, Officer Coonrod for the police department. Pretty good.
You can barely hear Chris in the body cam footage, but he sounds perfectly calm about this whole ordeal. Nicole has kept her cool thus far, but from her tone and behavior, she's obviously worried. Even if nothing is wrong and Shanann is perfectly fine, the way she is acting is indicative of something else being wrong, and Chris knows that, but seems completely emotionally removed. Moreover, getting a call from a police officer about your wife is a stressful ordeal. His blasé attitude towards it is extremely off-putting, to say the least. Officer Coonrod would no doubt be noting his odd behavior at this point.
So, do you have any idea where your wife is? Okay. Right. What my concern is, her car's here. They're saying she is diabetic. I don't want her, if she's upstairs and can't respond. Okay. About how far out are you? Okay. All right. Thanks. Dispatch Rec 981. He states medical. This female is diabetic. Unknown if she is home though. Husband is on his way. He said like 5 minutes. So he's about here.
He's told us 45 minutes 2 times in a row. He told one of my mom's friends that he was on I-45, so the interstate pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And we waited the time we were told. The mom called again. He said he was still on it and to wait another 45 minutes. So he's just been giving us false times and everything. And we know he's been lying because his stories aren't adding up.
Right.
He's telling everybody different stories.
The officer is now being made aware of more lies that Chris has told in the past day. He told Shanann's mother that she was with a friend. He told Nicole that she was at a play date. He later claimed he was on his way home and was 45 minutes away to Nicole 2 separate times. And now another concerned friend of Shanann was told something entirely different. If you have nothing to hide and are deeply concerned about your wife's well-being, you wouldn't procrastinate checking on her. Similarly, you wouldn't be giving false stories as to what it was that she was up to. If Shanann had left the home of her own volition and informed Chris where she was going, he would have no reason to tell concerned friends and family different things. He would simply recall what she had said that morning. Or, had he not known exactly where she was, he could have said that. But instead, it seems that Chris says something new to everyone he talks to.
And do we have, like, her parents' phone numbers or anything we can call them and make sure?
She's not close to him.
Oh, she's not?
Not that. No,
Okay.
she still talks to him and everything, but they don't know any of the codes to the house or anything.
Well, I was just thinking maybe they were watching the kids or she was visiting them or...
In the state.
They don't? Okay.
There's not people that can put in Wisconsin or somewhere around those lines.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything out of place. I'm not hearing kids. I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, and all of her stuff is here, and I set off the alarm by trying to open the garage forcefully, and that didn't work. So, and their alarm's one of the ones where it goes off, and it feels like it's making your ears bleed.
Mm-hmm.
So, if she was in there...
She should have heard it.
Yeah, she would have while she was sleeping, because they have little things on the wall on every room to go off.
I don't hear the phone ring or anything.
Yeah, the neighbor has a camera system,
Mm-hmm.
and he said because we have one story. She's with a friend right now, and then there's another story. She's on a play date with her kids with another friend, and then she left in the middle of the night. So he's told us 3 different stories. So the neighbor over there said he has a camera that sees out into the street. So sorry. We asked him if he could see if he was able to see if she ever left the house.
Right, that'll
She
work.
got in someone else's car.
Shanann's friends are the kind that anyone would be lucky to have. Nicole's son had talked to Shanann's neighbor and quickly found that he had cameras on his house that would have shown if Shanann had exited the home that day. Shanann's behavior is deeply out of character, so much so that at this point, all of her friends and family have begun to fear the worst. Nicole has been trying to contact Shanann all morning. She's been outside of her house for at least 2 hours, spoken to Shanann's family members to try and find her, and has even gone so far as to contact her doctor to see if she had made it to her appointment. It's clear that there is a significant cause to worry in this case. But when Chris shows up after lying to Nicole for 2 hours, he is nonchalant. He exits his vehicle, goes to the passenger side door, grabs some of his things, and ignores the officer currently in his driveway, along with his wife's friends. We see this sometimes with interrogation footage. A guilty party will want to distance themselves as far as possible from the circumstances they have found themselves in, and so they will go off on long, unimportant tangents. They want to delay having to deal with reality, and so they distract themselves. That's what Chris is doing. If your significant other was missing, you will likely jump into action to make sure that they are okay. But here, Chris is lollygagging, taking up as much time as possible, almost as if he knows where Shanann, Bella, and Cece are, and simply doesn't care.
Scott, how you doing?
How's it going?
So this is the only vehicle she would have?
Only one that, yeah.
She would drive? Okay.
That's me. Yeah. The neighbors went and checked his cameras and they said that a white car drove away at 1. It was me though. That was me. I dropped her off.
That was the last action on my camera.
Good. That's throughout the whole day, or?
Besides Chris leaving?
Well, yeah.
The only action that the neighbor's camera picked up that seemed to be out of the ordinary was Shanann being dropped off by Nicole at 1:45 a.m., meaning that unless Shanann and the girls went with Chris to work, they would be in the home. But that's impossible. Chris would have told Officer Coonrod, Nicole, and her parents that if that was the case. Why would he have lied about taking them to work with him or giving them a ride somewhere else that morning? There is no back way out of the house, meaning that Shanann and the girls had to be inside.
What about the, there's no way you can look for the day? During the daytime?
What? Bring a cake? The girls' car seats are in the car too, so if she left with the friend, she would have took the car seats.
I can go look if he doesn't find her.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Huh? Chris is in the house. We're standing outside of the police office.
30 seconds have gone by since Chris entered the home, and he didn't give the officer permission to enter. Again, had he felt that Shanann and his daughters were in significant danger, or that a medical emergency had occurred, his actions would be directly impeding any help that the girls could get.
Can we go in the house?
We can.
I mean, that's up to him. It's his house. If you guys...
Nikki, I'll give you permission to walk in my daughter's house.
Mind if I come in, Chris? Okay.
For those of you who didn't hear what Shanann's mother stated, she was giving Nicole permission to go into the home in an incredibly forceful manner. Though it's not her permission to give. The fact that Chris has lied to her and hampered the investigation into where her daughter is has taken a considerable toll on her. At the present moment, she is realizing that the man she trusted with her daughter's life can no longer be trusted with even telling her where her daughter is.
You checked upstairs? She's not there? I just want to make sure she's not passed out somewhere. Is she diabetic? You mind if I look around?
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Oh, you're fine.
Outside.
Oh, you're fine. Code for. Check in the house for consent. Oh. Well,
Shanann always had her phone on her. She was constantly texting, posting to Facebook, and making sure everything was set up exactly the way she wanted it to be. In fact, the only reason why the welfare check was called in the first place was because she wasn't responding to messages on her phone, and that was so deeply out of character. But Chris is completely nonplussed about this. He saunters into frame casually, as if finding his wife's phone away from her is not a big deal. Even if he believes that she is perfectly fine, her not having the phone on her makes the present situation harder. Selfishly, he should feel anxiety about this, but he doesn't seem to care. Officer Coonrod appears more distressed at this revelation than Chris, and he's never even met Shanann.
Any friends she would be hanging out with? I know, I guess her parents are out of state.
Across country, North Carolina.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's not happening. She can play with it. All the girls' blankies are gone. Their blankies they sleep with, they don't leave anywhere without them.
Good.
Again, nothing Chris has discovered is positive. Shanann and the girls are gone. She is 2 months pregnant, her phone has been left at the house, and the girls' blankets are missing as well. At the very least, this indicates that Shanann has left the home with the girls with the intention of not communicating with anyone else, which is incredibly out of character for her. This kind of shift in behavior could be indicative of a mental breakdown, where she could hurt herself or the children. Chris was inside when the neighbor told Officer Coonrod and Nicole that no one else was recorded coming in or out of the home since 5 a.m. that morning, when he left for work. So he is still under the impression that he can continue to state that she was probably picked up by an unknown friend of hers.
Nothing else appears to be missing though, just stuff you'd take for a quick trip.
Her phone's here? Yeah. Her phone's here.
Does she work?
Yeah, she works from home.
Oh, from home?
This is her lifeline.
Nicole's reaction is more on par to how someone who deeply cares and loves Shanann would react to her phone being found. She shakes her hand as if the phone has burned her when she touches it. She knows that Shanann would never leave the house without her phone. She would never just forget it, so something has deeply gone wrong for it to be here. Her reaction stands in stark contrast to Chris's. Once more, he is relaxed, shoulders down, hunched, as if he is looking for a misplaced article of clothing, and not his wife. Even if they were having issues, even if they were on the brink of divorce, he should at the very least be worried about the children, but he isn't. Even when he states that her phone is her lifeline, his voice is devoid of any emotion. It's almost robotic, like he knows what he should be saying, but can't muster the correct feeling to make it believable.
It was shut down?
She's in the playroom. Yeah. Well, it was originally under the pillow on the couch. You know her passcode?
I don't know her passcode.
It used to be 2385, and now it's 6 digits.
It's the baby's due date.
1/31/19.
Once again, Nicole's reaction is more on par with someone who deeply cares for Shanann and the girls. Her mind is racing, remembering her friend and trying to think of ways to find her. When she doesn't know the phone's passcode, she throws out suggestions, while Chris just stands there, barely engaged with the scenario in front of him.
What does she do for work?
She works a direct sales company called Drive.
How often does her blood sugar drop low?
Cassie, her friend in Arizona, said that that's the first time it's ever happened.
She normally has migraines, like a while ago, but she had them a lot this weekend.
Yeah.
Cassie's a nurse, so she figured it was because her blood pressure sugar was dropping.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't eating her normal that she normally eats. Like she'd take a couple bites until she was full.
Okay.
Chris tried to downplay the severity of Shanann's medical issues to Officer Coonrod here. When asked about her blood sugar, the officer was opening the door for either Chris or Nicole to tell him about her medical history, which is vast. Shanann's lupus and the fact that she was past the first trimester would mean that finding her was an even higher priority for the police. Chris tries to shut down conversation about his wife's health, saying she had only experienced this kind of medical issue once, which, to be clear, is not true. Chris knew Shanann regularly experienced migraines and other lupus-related symptoms. When she had a flare-up, it was debilitating. Add to that, she was with their children without a phone or any way to call for help. All of them could be in danger. But Chris doesn't want Officer Coonrod to know that. He would rather the officer think that she is out with the kids perfectly fine.
And
She doesn't ever black out or have seizures or anything like
no,
that.
I mean, long time ago. She got in a car wreck, and they believe that's what happened. But Imitrex is something she takes for migraine. She took more Imitrex this last month than she ever had before, but that's just because she was in North Carolina with the humidity and everything like that. She was there for 6 weeks, and we got back Monday or Tuesday, and then she flew out to Arizona Friday morning, and then she got back last night about 2 a.m. The flight got delayed. She left about 11. She got here at 2.
Okay.
And I went to work this morning about 5:15, 5:30.
What do you do?
I work at oil and gas in Anadarko.
What do you do for them?
Operator.
Oh. Long days then?
Yeah, I definitely still be out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always a long day, especially in that heat. There's no off text messages unless.
Can you look at your camera to see from your security system to see when she left?
It's unless they left out the front door.
Because you told me that she went on a play date with the girls, and then
That's what she told me.
Addie said you told her that
She went with some friends. She went to go to a friend's house with the kids. That's why I knew they weren't at school.
Addie said you told her that she left in the middle of the night.
Oh no, she didn't leave in the middle of the night. No.
Chris laughing at the assertion that he told another person a different version of events is him attempting to downplay what had occurred. Obviously, he knows that giving multiple stories as to where Shanann went makes him look terrible, especially now that the police are involved, so he tries to make it seem like the two stories he told are one and the same. He didn't say that Shanann took the girls on a playdate, then changed the story to she went to see a friend. Obviously, he meant that she took the girls on a playdate to her friend's house. Can he name the friend? No. Did he tell Nicole to get off of his property multiple times, tell her not to call the cops, and then take his leisurely time getting back to the house to check on it himself? Yes. But don't worry about that. Nicole knows that what Chris is saying cannot be true. She waited for him outside of the home for 2 hours. She's been the one leading the charge to find Shanann, and he has tried to hinder her every step of the way.
Yeah.
Where do your kids go to school at?
Primrose in Vista Ridge. Okay. Hey. Yeah. No. Yeah, she said she was at her friend's house. That's what she told me she was going to do.
Nicholas.
I have no clue at whatsoever why she wouldn't take her cell phone. No, it doesn't make any sense at all. If she didn't leave out the front door, I can't see it. Well, yeah, I can look at that and see. But it's so random because it goes off and on here lately. It gets false trips because it told me it was open when I got here.
While we can't hear the other side of the conversation, contextually, we know that Shanann's mother is telling him that he should check the security logs of the home just to see if there's a record of Shanann and the girls coming and going. This is a great idea, and had Chris wanted to help find his missing wife and children, he likely would have jumped at the idea. But he doesn't want to do that. For some reason, going through the effort of checking to see if the front or back doors were opened sometime during his workday and when Shanann left is too much for him, so he immediately comes up with reasons as to why it isn't worth his time. Moreover, the reason that the garage door security system claimed that the door was open was because of their efforts to make sure Shanann was okay. Nicole and her son tried to knock the door down. He mentioned this to the officer and went further to state that while they weren't able to break the door in, the alarm did go off for a number of minutes. Had Shanann been inside with the girls asleep, this would have woken them up.
I know it doesn't make any sense at all. I'm not lost. I don't know where she's at, where the kids are at. Hello?
I don't see her first because she's doing it.
Yeah.
The guy with the camera said nobody left the house during the day. The only people that showed up in the driveway and entered it were us.
Nicole knows.
What's that?
Your neighbor's camera.
Your neighbor, he has cameras. He said that the only people that left the house were you in the morning and then drove or shut and then that's all he has.
I dropped her off.
Okay. But who left and then just okay.
Chris has just been made aware that there is now irrefutable evidence that he was the only person to exit the home that morning, meaning the only way that Shanann and the girls left the home was in his car. According to his neighbor, who has a camera that captures the only way out of the home, his car was the only vehicle to be seen leaving the house. No one was seen coming or going. Shanann and the girls never went out on a play date. Everything Chris has said prior to this moment has been a lie. Nicole, at the very least, realizes what this means. The reason why it seemed as though Chris didn't care about the disappearance of his entire family was because he had been the one to make them disappear. He had purposely been trying to get Nicole and Shanann's parents off of his back from the moment they began to worry about her, not realizing how well loved she actually was. He had killed Shanann and the girls before work, and he had hoped that he would have a few days to get his story together about what had happened. But because Shanann was constantly in communication with people who loved her, people who wanted to take care of her, and knew she was going through a hard time, Chris's original plan had failed. The reason why he seemed standoffish and cold to Nicole originally was because he wanted more time to get away with his plan. The reason he had told various stories to her friends and family was because he hadn't thought of a concrete plan by the time they came to the house, and the reason he had taken so long to come home was because he didn't expect he would have to speak to the police so soon. Because we are covering this case in chronological order, we will go over the full details of what occurred in a later video.
I'll see if I can get on that USA app or Chase app, see if I can get on it, please. I'll see. I will. Alright, thank you.
Hello?
Dispatch work 91. You can cancel medical if they're staged.
Chris is the last person who wants to last time.
Usually, I would have skipped through this portion of the video because it would seem like nothing is happening, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Put yourself in Chris's shoes. Earlier this morning, he killed his entire family and hid their bodies. Afterwards, he'd gone to work and been able to interact with people as if nothing was wrong. However, his deceased wife and kids were so well loved and cared for that less than 5 hours after killing them, people were already wondering if they were okay. He'd spent the rest of his morning trying to conceal the fact that they were killed, telling his friends and family various stories, and vaguely threatening them to leave him alone. But that doesn't work, and eventually you are forced to come back home, to the scene of the crime, and talk to the police, where you were informed that they have obtained proof of your guilt. One would expect Chris to be a wreck, But he isn't. Instead, he buries himself inside of his phone, trying to distract himself from the present situation. Chris's ability to emotionally detach himself from the present situation is incredibly alarming and strange. But again, after he killed his entire family, he went into work as if nothing was wrong.
So, what time do you work?
Usually, once I get to work, it's like 6:30 to 3:30, 4 o'clock.
You usually work nights or days?
Days.
What time do you leave the day?
What time I leave there?
No, here.
Usually between 5:30 and 6.
Alright. And was Shannon here then?
Yes. Yeah, she's still in bed.
Does she usually watch the kids, or you have daycare watch them? Or?
She usually watches the kids if they're not at school.
Okay.
At the pool?
Yeah.
The little rec center thing right here?
There's a pool right down there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been here for like off and on for 3 hours. Here, you're nothing.
Alright, I can run down there and check.
Why don't you go?
You guys having any kind of issues, marital issues, or
We're going through separation.
you are? Did you guys file it yet or anything, or just talking about it?
No, we're gonna sell the house and do a separation.
And how's that going?
It's going
Civil for the most
civil,
part, or? Does your wife go to that swim pool often, or
It just depends. I mean, on a hot day like this, I would say no.
When Nicole brought up Shanann and the girls possibly being at the pool, Chris stated that he could go over there and check. This was an easy out for him, a way to seem engaged with the current situation, and it was actually entirely plausible that Shanann would have taken the girls out swimming. She wouldn't have brought her phone to keep it from getting wet, and they would have been occupied for hours. But immediately after Chris began to move towards the stairs, he seems to lose steam. For some reason, feigning any sort of energy or care towards his soon-to-be ex-wife was impossible for him to do. He knows the girls are dead. He knows Shanann is dead. Why would he go to the pool if he knows they aren't there? Especially when he can stay in a nice air-conditioned home and play on his phone. Soon, when the officer asks if Shanann would go swimming with the girls often, he nonsensically replies that she wouldn't go swimming when it's hot, which is absurd.
Says at 5:27 a.m. the overhead garage door 2 was left open and never shut. About that time. So either like when I pulled away and shut the door, it never shut. It was shut when you got here. So either the sensor was tripping out, which has happened before. I've had to replace it 2 weeks ago before I left.
So, this is Chris trying to come up with a new story to sell. The garage door wasn't left open. If it had been, Nicole and her son would have been able to enter the home when they arrived on the scene, and she would have called the police earlier, stating that her friend was missing. He has already said 3 different times that the garage door sensor is faulty, but now he is trying to state that maybe the garage was left open, and maybe somehow the girls left the home without being captured on camera, but he needs to think of a way of moving the suspicion off of him. If the garage was left open, which we know it was not, then the girls could have left on their own. They could have been taken by a person off the street. Anything could have happened to them after Chris left.
It says the basement door was left open at 5:26. Visitor expected 1:48. That's when she got home. And then visitor expected 12:10. That was when we came.
Were you able to pull up the video at the 12:10? See, was it front door?
12:10. That was Nikki.
That was you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was beeping at me out in the field.
Chris has come out of the bathroom carrying Shanann's wedding ring on the tip of his finger. The way he leaves and comes back is highly suspect, because it's not as if he was gone for a long period of time looking for clues. He left, immediately found the wedding ring, then came back, showing it off as if it's proof that Shanann had left of her own free will. Based on what Chris and Cindy Watts would later state publicly, Chris was trying to sell another alternative version of events, one in which his soon-to-be ex-wife spitefully took the kids and vanished to punish Chris. Cindy would state as much publicly in an interview done after Shenan and the girls' bodies were found.
Tell me what happened when they were reported missing. What did you find out? How did you find out? Who told you?
I think Ronnie called me. Ronnie called me and said that they're missing, and I thought, I don't believe it. I didn't believe they were missing. I believed that she was going to punish Chris. She was just going to punish him, take the girls, and just punish him. I had no idea of anything else. Christopher called and said, Mom, they're searching the house. I said, okay, that's fine. I mean, and I still was not worried. I was not worried. I just thought Shanann had run off with girls.
So walk me through the sequence of events over the next few days. Did you and your husband travel to Colorado?
Ronnie did.
Okay.
Ronnie did. And I mean, Christopher let everybody come in. Her phone is there. Her purse is there. Everything is there. But there's no kids and there's no Shanann. And I was not worried. You know, I thought, she has just gone off and I'm going to punish you for this and you can worry about me. But
you talk a little bit about some things we talked about yesterday. You said, you know, I think your exact words were, he's not the psychopath next door.
He isn't. He's not the sociopath next door. He's not the psychopath. He didn't kill little small animals. He didn't do any of these things. He was a good child. I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything that was abnormal about him, except he was socially awkward. You know, he had trouble socializing, but so did I when I was younger. I think you learn that as you grow, and I think he felt a little bit more comfortable in his skin, and he just, I don't think he just had the right person at his side. I don't.
And that is what she was willing to say while being recorded, after Shanann was found dead. Suffice it to say, she probably wasn't kinder to her in real life. Chris is grasping at straws here. He's looking for Nicole to affirm some alternative version of events where he doesn't look guilty. He wants her to believe him, because if he can get her on his side, when she is Shanann's closest friend, he thinks he will be golden. Let's see if she'll take the bait. That did not go well for him. Nicole actively tried to walk away from him, and he tentatively followed her, trying to get some form of relief from her. He's trying to be subtle, showing her the ring in hopes she will tell Coonrod that she now believes Shanann took the girls and left on her own to punish him, but he finds no such luck. Again, Nicole knows Shanann. She is one of her closest friends. She knows Shanann would never use the kids to hurt Chris, or run away from her problems this way. Shanann had talked about fighting for their marriage, wanting to make things work, and how she wasn't going to give up. Chris showing her best friend her wedding ring only serves to make him look even more guilty, especially since he found it after looking for less than a minute.
Does she do her work from a laptop, or is it just
phone?
Just from the phone?
What about your bank account?
I tried her logins are different than mine.
It's not a joint account.
It's a joint account, but like she controls all of it. Like she doesn't let me do the finances because I was pretty horrible back in the day, so she just kind of handles all that and she does it. And I have the apps on my phone, but I don't have her login to get into it.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
Can you log into your account though?
I can. No, I don't have a laptop, but she has the one downstairs still. But her login, I don't know her login. Like I know the password, but I don't know her login for user ID. It's always the same password, 4281915 capital SW. But it's just a matter of getting the login.
Right, if she's getting gas or...
Yeah, somewhere.
Once more, anytime Chris is given an opportunity to display that he wants to find his family, he immediately shuts it down. Nicole and the officer ask him about their bank accounts, with the idea that if he could access their accounts online, they could see if Shanann is using their debit or credit cards. This would be smart, especially if Chris wants to run with the narrative that Shanann has taken the girls on the run to spite him. But Chris is now stating that he doesn't have access to the bank accounts, because Shanann handled all of that. He then clarifies that he knows the password, but he doesn't know the exact login, which could be easily handled should he contact the bank. But it seems like that would be too much. He doesn't want to go through the effort of calling the bank, getting placed on hold, figuring out how to log into the account, all to see that she isn't using the card, especially when he knows that she isn't using the card. He just wants everyone to believe Shanann is a bad person and took the kids, even though there is obviously no evidence of that.
It didn't look like she went through and packed up a bag or anything.
This and all that on the bottom, so it'd be kind of hard to tell if she took a little bit, or it'd be easy to tell if she took a lot, but it's hard to tell if she took a little bit or not.
Okay. She tell you anything about leaving, moving out?
Not moving out. I mean, the last time I talked to her was this morning. She said she was going to take the kids to a friend's house, and that's where she was going to be. And then I've texted her today. I've never heard anything, but the car's here. Car seats are here. Unless somebody came and picked her up. But the people that I know, nobody's heard from her, nobody's seen her.
Right.
Chris has now begun to imply a new, disparaging version of events, one that we already know cannot be true. He emphasizes that he has already reached out to everyone in Shanann's life to see if they know where she is, as if we hadn't already seen him basically ignore the situation for nearly 25 minutes. But let's give him the benefit of the doubt, him placing special significance on saying that the people that he knows is meant to allude to the fact that Shanann could have been living a secret double life. There could be people in her life that he doesn't know, people who could hurt her or have picked her up and taken her, even though that's not possible because the neighbor's camera would have caught that. Again, he's trying to sow the seeds of as many alternative theories as possible. Shanann left on her own to punish him. Someone came in through the open garage. A friend picked her up. Even if all the available evidence says otherwise, he continues to try and push attention off of himself.
Who do you guys bank with?
Chase and USA.
Definitely an odd one.
I don't know what I can do right now. Should I drive around like the normal route that she would be?
Where does she normally go to?
I mean, just like drive where like she would normally take the kids to school. People that I know that live down, people that live, Kristen lives down that way. I mean, that's the only routes I know she would really take.
Does she go to their house frequently, or?
And not much, but.
Chris just wants to leave the home, despite being against doing any active searches earlier. When Officer Coonrod doesn't jump at his latest theory, Chris seems dejected. The stress of the situation is undoubtedly getting to him, and he wants to leave the home in order to get a grasp on what is happening. They already know Shanann isn't out with the girls. Her car is in the garage, but he needs to get away from this situation in order to get some relief. Let's see if he is successful.
Still talking to the officer right now. Okay, bye. I will, definitely. Alright, bye. Sorry about that. That was wrong. I mean, you think it's smart just drive around, see if
Probably not, because I mean, you don't know what car she's in, where she's at. I mean, obviously you're not going to see her car. It's here.
Chris's face, after getting properly shut down, is incredible to watch. He is absolutely beaming as he looks at the officer, believing he has found some kind of out from what must feel like a personal hell. But Nicole and the officer shut him down, reminding him that Shanann would not be driving the car, and that him leaving would be entirely unhelpful. The way he goes from smiling hopefully at Officer Coonrod to glaring down at his phone is brilliant.
Well, I know Amanda's out of town because her brother died. Yeah. She's not flying back till a day. And the other one she's really close with that I know is Sarah.
what else do you think I could do?
Yeah.
Just wait for her here?
Well, I've got my detective coming, just because this is kind of an odd situation. See if we can try to get her pinpointed down, find a friend or something.
Okay.
He may have you call the bank.
Okay. Hey sir, it's Chris Watts. Not too bad. Have you heard from Shenan today?
This one portion of the footage, in our opinion, is the most damning. First and foremost, Chris stated that he had already spoken to everyone he knew that could have picked up Shanann and the girls. He was very direct in saying that he had exhausted everyone who he knew, implying that Shanann could have been leading a double life, kind of like what he was doing. But that's clearly not the case, because he already had the contact information for the person he's calling. And it's clear by the way he's speaking to her that she has no idea that Shanann is missing. Those two things cannot be true at the same time. Continuing on, when this person asks Chris how he's doing today, instead of saying not great, we can't find Shanann or something similar, he states he's doing not too bad, which is obviously ridiculous. That's possibly the worst thing you could say in this situation. Even if his relationship with Shanann is over, that is still a person he has spent 8 years with, a person who he loved for almost a decade. Her going missing should cause some kind of emotional reaction, but it doesn't. He responds as if he's being asked this question on any other day.
No, I have not. You're my last person to call. So I'm just, all right. I don't want to make you nervous or anything, but I'll keep you posted. No. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Did she have any medical conditions other than
Lupus.
lupus?
Fibromyalgia, rosacea. She thought she had RA, but she took a lot of medication in North Carolina. She stopped a bunch of it when she moved here. But she has some flare-ups here and there.
When did she move here?
When she moved here in 2012.
Okay. No, like recent, is she taking any kind of medication?
Imitrex for migraines and some Monte class for like allergies and stuff like that.
Okay.
Less than an hour earlier, Chris had drastically downplayed Shanann's medical issues, stating that she just dealt with migraines, and they had been bad the past month because she'd been traveling. However, now it appears that he's realized the seriousness of the situation, and that if he doesn't tell the officer about her ailments, it will just make him look worse.
Stuff for nausea.
No, nothing's changed as far as medication-wise?
No, not that I know of. Not that she said.
Any kind of behavioral changes, anything like that recently?
Going through a separation. That's the only behavior changes. That seem just more a little emotional. When we talk, you know.
The neighbor said it was like, I don't know.
Okay.
Loaded my stuff up in my coolers, my water jugs, my book bag, my computers, some of the tools that I had from the toolbox. I knew I was going to have to do some pumping unit rubbers today. That's why I was out so far.
Prior to this point, the security camera footage has all been theoretical. This piece of evidence that Chris can kind of maneuver himself around and try and discredit by saying Shanann and the girls simply weren't caught on it. But now, he's about to watch himself load Shanann's dead body and his children in his truck. The panic he would be feeling is immense and completely self-serving. Furthermore, let's compare his body language to when he was in his home where the murder was committed. When he was doing a poor job feigning care for his missing daughters, he stood hunched over his phone, fairly distracted. He was still, calm, and he appeared fairly bored by the entire situation. But here, he's rocking back and forth, gesturing when he is talking in a way he hasn't done prior, and clumsily trying to explain away what the tape is about to reveal. For the first time in the whole day, he's nervous.
Is this on continually recording?
Yep. Well,
it's not. Is it motion or is it?
Event,
Okay, so it's motion.
Any motion event that happens, but I get cars driving from this street, and this is him at 517.
Their neighbor has already destroyed any arguments and alternative theories that Chris has come up with. The security footage started the moment it captured Chris walking out of the home. Not when he moved his car into the garage, but the moment he came out of the door, meaning that had Shanann or the girls walked out of the home after, they would have been captured. Chris had already tried to imply that they could have walked out of the home, that Shanann could have left on foot or been picked up, but the camera captured him simply walking, which would mean it would have caught them as well. Once more, Chris is already justifying moving his car into the garage, an action that frankly shouldn't need to be justified. If this was his morning routine, and he did this every day, then he's just going about his morning as usual. But he never did this. Chris's truck leaked oil, and to avoid oil stains in the garage or driveway, he parked his car on the street. He never put his car in the garage, so him doing as much is completely out of the ordinary. His continued justification of this one action draws more attention to it, and it makes it stand out more. If you find yourself in a situation where someone is repeatedly justifying a seemingly innocuous action they had taken, even before they are being accused of any wrongdoing, that tends to be indicative of guilt.
else going to do with this?
My detective just showed up, so he'll probably want to talk to you. He'd probably, like I said, he might have you call at the bank and see if there's any kind of activity.
Because if there was any sort of action out there,
His camera's
I would have got it.
Pausing for just a moment, but Chris could not have looked more guilty if he tried. While watching the footage of him loading his dead wife and children into his car, he placed his hands on top of his head. If you've watched any kind of sports, you would no doubt be familiar with this pose, as it's a pretty reflexive stance that people go into whenever they're trying to catch their breath. Raising your arms above your head lengthens your chest and allows you to get more air into your lungs, which can allow you to catch your breath faster. But Chris isn't exercising, he's panicking. His heart is racing as if he's working out, and in a bid to keep calm, he raises his arms over his head. He also licks his lips after asking the officer what else he can do, which can be a sign of stress. But he has not stopped rocking back and forth since coming into his neighbor's home, and pay attention to how frequently he blinks. Again, it's as if he's been working out and is getting sweat in his eyes.
We had issues the other week when people were stealing stuff out of like garages and stuff like that, and I had parked my truck right here.
Park right here.
Yeah. So I could see where someone tried to jimmy with a flathead screwdriver over there, and it was just like.
But if any action would have happened, any cars or anything left your house, I would have.
It would have been like right in that area. It should have picked.
It'll pick up anything coming down the street this way.
You know where that tree there too?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Chris is trying to alleviate some of the anxiety he's feeling by talking about a truly unimportant and unrelated event when cars in the area were being broken into. Again, we've already seen him do this, albeit to a much less obvious degree. Acknowledging what he just saw, dwelling on his current situation, that is horrifying for Chris. He just watched himself place his wife's dead body into his car. He knows that he's just been caught, but he can't handle reality. So instead, he tries to distract himself by talking about the time his car was almost burgled. I generally hold as much disdain as the next person for the illicit use of ill-gotten booty, but this is particularly ridiculous and obviously a cope.
Watch, I'll show you. There's nothing on here. We've already watched that one. But like, you'll see this car.
What security system do you have?
Xfinity. You can see this car starting to drive down the street here.
That one.
Oh, look.
See what I'm saying? It picks up all the way down there.
That's cool.
He's next door.
Can we go?
I was talking about dispatcher. It'll be close for.
Because yeah, we can pick up cars coming this way. I get anything coming this way and making this turn. So, and usually at night I pick up the cars pulling a U-turn. So, unless they pulled right here,
yeah.
But I would have caught her walking out. Diesel.
He's good.
So yeah, I thought nothing.
Nothing for the rest of the day.
No, that's it.
She's pregnant as well.
How far along?
14, 15 weeks.
All right, appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks.
Hopefully something comes up here.
Yeah.
Mind if you just want to go talk to him? I'm going to get his info real quick. No.
He's never fidgety. He's never rocking back and forth. And if you look, he never loads his stuff in and out of the garage ever.
Right.
Routine and how the people around you perceive you is a huge part of this case. Because Shanann was so attached to her phone, people noticed within hours of her murder that something was wrong. The alarm was raised so incredibly fast that it didn't give Chris any time to come up with a cover story like he thought he would have. Moreover, Chris's behavior and his routines were as similarly set, with his neighbor immediately catching on that something was very wrong with him. Sure, it could be that his wife was missing, but he hadn't been acting like it when he was in his own home. He knows Chris. He's lived next door to him for years. He knows Chris never parks his car in the garage and is incredibly quiet. He knows Chris is a strong, silent type, and his stress was oozing off of him.
My daddy is a hero. He helps me grow up strong. He
When Chris killed Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico, he had done so to start a new life. He wanted to move on from his old family, the one that tied him down and made it impossible for him to do whatever he wanted. Little did he know, he had gotten what he wanted. He was about to start a new life, one where he would never step outside of a prison again.